Hello there, and welcome to Community Life. Here we talk with community experts about their life journeys and learn from each other. Today, we have a conversation with community manager, community strategist, and community influencer, Yurii Lazaruk. Hi, Yurii.
Hey Ella, so happy to switch seats. I'm so curious of questions you will ask me, so I'm all ears.
And so am I. I can't wait to hear your answers. So you've done a few of these before, and you've been asked a bunch of questions before. So the question you always ask people at the end of your interviews and your community life episodes is, what should I have asked you that I didn't already ask? So what question should somebody have asked you in one of these interviews that they haven't already asked?
Wow, such hard question in the beginning. Okay.
I know you're ready for it.
Not at all, but I will think about. So, one thing I didn't talk too much about yet is what language I learned in primary school and why did I stop learning it?
Well, you know that segues nicely from many conversations that you and I have already had, and it feels like the perfect time for you to share a little bit more about it. What language did you learn when you were in primary school and stopped learning?
Luckily, because of Duolingo, with the help of Duolingo, I'm coming back to it, and I'm doing small but steady progress in this way, but it's Japanese. And I don't know why, but for some reason, when I was 5 years old, my parents decided that I have to learn some languages and not English. And we had one and only school with foreign languages, and mainly with I remember there were 3 languages they learned. It was Japanese, Chinese, and I guess Arabic. And for some reason, it was the first grade and I had to pass exams to be enrolled to the school. But they showed me, there was a commission, they did some tests, and they showed me some cards in Arabic and they asked me to remember them. And after they showed me once again, I had to name them. But I was so stressed. I was a really small kid. I was like going to school. I was having conversation with some people I've never met, and they asked me some crazy questions. Definitely, I failed this exam. But my grandparents had friend in 2nd grade. So that's how I got enrolled to the 2nd grade instead of the 1st grade, which is totally crazy because you never have to skip classes. Otherwise, you'll be a small kid for all other classes. And up to finishing the university, I was always the youngest person in the class. And it sucks. It's so bad to be the youngest person. But anyway, I don't know how, but for some reason we chose Japanese and I was really good at it. And I remember our teacher, at least I don't remember this conversation, but my mom told me that at one of the parents' gatherings, she came to my mom and told like, can you please tell Yurii that he don't have to always have his hands up because I can't ask him all the time. I have to ask everyone. So can you please speak to him and tell that that he won't be disappointed, that it's not like I don't like him, I just have to ask others. So, and I don't remember the name of the teacher, but she was really very great and she told us really very good. And I believe that everyone who had this class with me had a good knowledge of the language. But then she went to professional development and never came back. And they started to bring some students to teach us classes, and it made no sense because we could teach those students ourselves. And yeah, since that time, I went to mathematical, physical, lyceum, and yeah, only now I'm trying to come back to this.
So that is your story of beginning to learn Japanese. And one of the questions that I had for you while you were telling this story is like, presumably when you were first learning Japanese, you were learning it from Ukrainian. Are you still using Duolingo in Ukrainian to learn Japanese, or are you now learning from another language? And which one is it?
I'm learning it from English. Because I almost everything, almost every language, every new language I learn from English. Because
about that.
I don't know, I know Ukrainian, so it's my native language. I have nothing new to learn out of it, but I still have a lot to learn in English. So that's why I'm always trying, if I have any books, I'm always trying to read them in English. If I watch movies, for sure, if it's not Polish movies, Polish movies I watch in Polish, but if it's English movies, I'll watch them in English. So I'm trying to, soak as many English language as I can, and it helps me a lot. So yeah, easy answer to your question, it's English.
Okay, interesting. Do you find that there's any kind of surprising differences in the way that you were learning Japanese from Ukrainian? And I mean, it was a long time ago, right? So it's maybe hard to compare, but
I would say no, because in Duolingo how it works, that they give you a sentence in English and you have to choose how to translate in Japanese and vice versa. So basically, only thing I need is to understand what they want from me. So in English, in Ukrainian, I understand what they want. Definitely, I won't learn Japanese from Italian, because I do not understand Italian, and it most likely it'll be a good challenge, but I won't sure that it will be effective.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question, right? Like when we set ourselves challenges, how do we ensure that they're challenging enough, but also that we're effective and we're not kind of making it harder for ourselves? Like, how do you typically define that and find that balance in your own learning?
I'm this kind of person who will think first, never think first, do first and think after that. So I believe that with this approach, I'm bringing a lot of challenges to myself. But also, using this approach, it helps me to understand faster if it works. Because, I can think a lot about any things, but if I never try those things, I will never know how to do them, and if they are easy or hard, what way should I take? Because it all will be just a theory. So if I don't know, if somebody can tell me that it's a good idea to wake up at 5 a.m. in the morning and do some routine and then stuff, so I will try it. I was a 5 a.m. club member for 333 days, and it was crazy. I will never be this, at least if I'm not, living somewhere near the sea when the sun shining starting from 4 a.m. and it's waking me up and I'm like, all the stuff. But in current place, I will never wake up at 5 a.m. But I have to try. I have to try something to understand if it's good or not, if it's hard or easy. Should I continue that or not? And sometime before, and I had this conversation on between two articles with Lou Branscombe about allowing yourself to stop reading a book if you don't like it. Because previously I didn't allow it. If I didn't like, even though I didn't like a book, I still must have read it till the final page. It could take me like half a year, but I still have to finish it. Now, if I'm reading like first, 50, 100 pages, and I understand that it kind of sucks, most likely the rest of 4 or 5 or 1,000 pages will suck too. So it's better not to continue. So I'm trying to, I'm still learning to understand what to continue on and what not. But I believe that it's what really helps me to, choose the way I want to do anything. So I'm trying it, then I'm like, okay, is it going good or not? Should I change something or should I stop it? So asking those questions helping me to find things out.
Nice. Yeah, so it's so this kind of constant iteration, it has like different names in different disciplines, right? So I think Max Pete recently wrote an article about design thinking, but also like, in my background of community education, it's kind of known as praxis. But yeah, what I think is really interesting is that you seem to you almost apply this at like a kind of fractal level. So you apply it to like the individual project or task that you're taking on, but you're also applying it to your life as a whole, like simultaneously. Do you remember when you kind of started taking this approach to things? Do you feel like this is something that's always been innate to you? Or is it like, did you have an experience where you were like, oh, I can change my mind on stuff and adjust the way that I approach things, and I can do this everywhere?
Yeah, I'm still learning, and you were a big influencer on me in this space because, always you told me so many great things to think about, and you also taught me that sometimes if you don't have to do everything immediately, sometimes it's good to think what results you will receive in the end. And when I was a kid, I was taught that you can't change your mind. And, it was like this cultural bias that if you are a man, you can't change your mind. And if you like man's word, all this stuff. So if you chose one way, you have to go this way till the end, until you die. But I understand that just recently, I would say that after starting my international journey and after having a lot of conversation with people and after hearing so many stories about how they did their pivot and how they changed their career totally and how they changed their life, I learned that, okay, so there are other ways. You don't have to always stick to your word. Definitely, if you promised somebody something, at least you should, me as a man, I should do my best to do what I promised. But if it's impossible or if it's not the best way to do it, we always have to negotiate. We always have to talk about it, to be honest with people and to find better ways. So if it will be stop doing this thing, or if it will be doing this thing but another way, or if it will be doing another thing for this person. So I'm always trying to find a better way. If I understand that something is not working, the hardest part is to understand that it's not working, because I always like, oh my God, I can't make wrong decisions. I should always have good decisions. And oh my God, how can I say that I failed, or how can I say that I did something wrong? It's just impossible. But exactly at the moment that I'm saying to myself, okay, maybe you are doing something wrong. After this moment, it's getting so much better because I'm starting to think about it, and usually talking to other people and collecting a lot of thoughts, and it helps me to have a better decision and understand what next steps to take to really achieve some result and not just do something because I want to do it, or even though I don't want to do it. So
yeah, and this is a journey, right? It's part of like our whole kind of experience of lifelong learning and finding new perspectives on things. So it's no secret, I'm a really big fan of your wife. I think she's amazing, and I have also had the privilege of meeting her, which I think, you know, if anybody out here is listening to this and you ever get the opportunity to meet Yurii and his wife, like you've heard a lot about her already. But like, she's even better than Yurii makes her out to be. But I want to kind of talk about the fact that you've mentioned a few times in the past that she's this kind of like this perfect foil to your mindset a lot of the time, right? Sometimes she's your catalyst for realizing that you're going down the wrong path. And I'd like to kind of go back into that and maybe like talk about the first time she called you out on being on the wrong path, and how you've managed to navigate your relationship to get to this point that you're at now, where you have these really honest conversations with each other.
You know, it's always hard conversations because only now I'm learning to appreciate those conversations, because before I was like, why are you bullying me? So yeah, that's exactly, you know, that's the first reaction. Like if somebody is saying something you don't want to hear, so the first reaction is like trying to, like, you know, defend your boundaries and trying to like be defensive. Like, what do you mean? Why do you think that? Like, I'm not doing it that way that you see. But then after several examples, I understood that she's totally right. And if she sees something, at least I have to pay attention for it. It doesn't mean that I have to stop doing it immediately. At least I have to pay attention about it. And I would say that it was a lot about my community journey, because when I started doing it, it was with SEO Club and other Ukrainian communities. It didn't look like a job. So it was like I'm talking to people, I'm having fun and all the stuff. And it seems like it was no results. And I believe that she was this person who told me like, okay, I understand that you have fun. I understand that you enjoy talking to people, but think about how can you use it as a professional benefit, and how can you use your skills and what you learn to make money, you know? Because it's so good, but it won't be bad to make money. Definitely, it were not that kind words as I'm talking about right now, but and I definitely got defensive because, like, you don't understand, I'm doing it, like it's everything coming in the future and all the stuff. But she really made me think more about, okay, so what are my strong points? What are my strong sides? What I can really bring to the table, and how can I present myself in this world as not just a good person, but as an expert? So it was just one of conversations, and we had a lot of those conversations. And yeah, you know, it got me almost 8 years to understand that it's not bullying. It's really her wanting to help me.
Yeah, and that's a long time, dude.
Yeah, I'm a long learner.
Okay, so speaking of being a slow learner, so it's also like you know, it's also no secret, it's also public knowledge that you love music, but a lot of the music that you love is from like a long time ago. And it's from like a particular moment in time that seems to be like a particular moment in your life. So you know, I've been observing your kind of like, oh, this is a song that I love, this is a song that I love. And like, I feel like a lot of it kind of distills on a particular moment in time. I would love to hear more about like why that moment in time is like so formative for you, so important to you, and why the music from there like still lives on in your heart. And and why you haven't updated your favorite songs in a long time?
It's an amazing question. Like I didn't think about it, but when you were just asking it, it all come to my mind immediately. And I understand that those songs I like, and that I still have a lot of them in my playlist, and I still have a lot of them in my car. And those songs I were listening when I was teenager, and this age of rebellion and trying to find my way in a society, and having like some kind of problems with parents, and not always being the best student, and trying to make things my way, and trying to understand what is my way. And I love listening to songs that make sense for me. So if we're talking, like, sometimes I'm asking people this question, like, if you are listening to a song, what matters more, music or sense? So for me, it's always words and always sense. And even if I like music, but I don't like the meaning behind those words, I won't listen to this song. So I believe that all those songs I liked and still like are somehow showing my inner world, or at least my kind of inner intentions. And it's not a secret that I love a lot of Eminem and Linkin Park songs. And what I really loved about them, that they were so emotional that, it's going through the roof. There are a lot of other like metal and rap groups and singers who do the same, but for me, most of them lack emotions. They're doing it just for, they're doing it just for money, and it doesn't feel that they live what they think about. And I really love if people add in some of their personal emotions and stories into their songs, or into their books, or into the conversations, because I understand, like, okay, so this person feeling similar to me, so I'm not alone. So, it's all intersection with community, even though I didn't think about community back then, but it's so intersected. And it's kind of like finding my tribe and trying to understand what my tribe is. And, some songs I stopped listening to. I can't recall what exactly, but I remember that 5 years ago or something, I massively cleared my playlist, because, previously, it's now we have all songs in clouds, and I told to my wife, oh, I have to update music in our car, because I just use this not CD, but I use MP3 player in the car, so I need to upload new songs to it. I was like, oh, I didn't even download any new songs, because they are all on Spotify. And but I updated my song database, and it was like 100 gigabytes or even more, and now it's like 20. So it's not that much. So I kind of left only those songs that I still like. And why it's hard to add new ones? Maybe I'm getting old, but I feel like previously people made better music. I don't know why, but maybe it's all because of Spotify feeds me with the wrong songs. But I just don't know how to discover new music. And not only I don't know, but I don't have much time to discover new music. And that's exactly why it's also because of Pat, it's also because of Ilker, but my inner, thoughts, that's exactly why I started ask people to share songs of the week after between two work hours, because I enjoy talking to these people, and I really want to learn from them. I really want to hear their tastes of music, and I found some great songs out of that. So yeah, that's how it works for me.
Thank you so much for that in-depth answer. I honestly wasn't expecting so much of a biography. I think it's really interesting, the music that speaks to us, right? And the music that we relate to. I definitely used to be more of a lyrics person, but like I basically started listening to music in languages that I don't understand and like completely fell in love with like the music. And a lot of it for me is like related to dancing as well, and like these songs that you can like really dance to. So yeah, now I care way more about the music and the vibe. But I guess what I wanted to follow on with is something that I don't feel like we've talked about much before. Is obviously you love music, but I don't know whether you love any other kinds of art. I don't know, like we've talked a little bit about movies, but not in great depth. And yeah, I'm curious to know like what kind of like, you know, art or creativity do you engage with outside of yourself and your own work and your own family?
I would say that I still love movies, but I can't say that, you know, those art movies, let's say, all those you can see on Cannes festivals and all the stuff. So it's more like pop movies, you know, like comedies, like some action movies and all the stuff. But sometimes I'm watching hard movies. Like I watched a few movies about the Second World War and like about people's lives, and because it's relates to me a lot, you know, in current world. And for me, sometimes those kind of movies are too hard, because I'm a big fan of not wearing other people's shoes, because I'm afraid that if I will do it, I will lose myself. I will lose myself, and not to the music. I will lose myself to other lives. And I understand that I have my own life. I have my own family. I have my friends. I have people I talk to. And it's so much better if we, you know, add to each other's lives instead of disappearing in other lives. And I would say movies, if we can call it art. And I really love books. So I really love reading books. And I noticed that when I'm reading some kind of like business books or books about psychology, you know, like books people do, you know, to get money or to teach someone. So I receive a lot of thoughts out of those books, but I noticed that it's so much easier for me to read. I'm always mixing this fiction or non-fiction. So am I correct that fiction is imaginary books? So it's okay. So when I'm reading fictional books, I'm reading them so much faster because it's about people's lives. It's about stories. It's about feelings. It's about emotions. And I really love to read those kind of books and to learn from them. Sometimes I even learn from fictional books much more than from non-fictional. And I notice that I like writing, you know, and sharing my thoughts and my findings with other people. So if it's a part of art, so I will also call it. But just to tell, I'm totally lousy fan of like drawings and pictures in these art galleries because I just don't understand them. So I can see that it's a beautiful picture, or I can see that it's a bright picture, but it's hard for me to add any kind of meaning to a drawing. So I need more information, you know, more backstory, more story about this person's life. Like in what did they feel when they were writing this picture? what people they were talking to, what happened around them at their time. And only after that I can understand what it's all about. So always when we are going to some museums or some art galleries, it's like 5 minutes and I'm out. So I like, okay, I've seen everything, it's enough.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, really interesting. I think that what's interesting is that you seem to like, you gravitate towards words maybe more than pictures. Even the fact that you like watching documentaries as well.
Yeah, there are still words,
Yeah, exactly. I think it's super interesting. And I wonder, like, when it comes to reading books, you talked about how before you were reading mostly in English.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find that, like, when it comes to something like fiction, the richness of the emotion changes depending on what language you're reading in? Do you experience any differences when you're reading in Ukrainian versus when you're reading in English?
I've recently read Ukrainian authors, and I noticed that they are totally in line with worldwide authors. And one of there is a writer, Ivan Franko, and one of his poems, I read it, or romances, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of I don't know how to call them correctly, but some story. So he wrote some story, and I noticed that, wow, this story is like not worse than Eric Maria Remarque's, or it's not worse than Jack London's. So it's in line with worldwide authors, and it's not very popular. It's even not very popular in Ukraine, because in Ukraine people tend to read American authors or like European authors because we kind of like want to learn from them, but sometimes we forget about our own authors. And I was like, it was a big discovery for me. And most of the books I read in Ukrainian were translation of English or other languages. So basically, there is not definitely I prefer to read the book in a language of in an origin language, because I can understand what authors really meant, not what translator meant, because translators still bring in these books through their mind and choosing their words, not authors' words. But if we are talking, Ukrainian people, if you look into the history, Ukrainian people were struggling a lot, always. So it's a lot of struggling in those writings. And, in the moment of struggling, you can definitely understand it. But in the moment of happiness, it might be boring, because like, what are they talking about? I don't get it. But when you struggle, when you have similar emotions, it's so much easier to relate. So I believe it also depends on conditions and time and emotions, and what happened at the moment something was written. So yeah, I'm not sure if I answered your initial question, but I feel like there is definitely, like, there are a lot of differences and there are a lot of similarities. So I can't say for sure, but it's the same as talking to people, like talking to people in Ukrainian and talking to people in English might be similar if people are sharing similar values and if people are having similar mindset. So basically it's all, I would say it's more about mindset and people than language.
Yeah, I think that makes total sense. And it absolutely resonates with like my experience of reading literature, like not just like literature in other languages and translate it into English, but also like, English language literature. There is like so many different kind of like historical moments and experiences. To be perfectly honest, I tend not to read a lot of stuff by like European authors. I typically read stuff by, international authors, like people who are maybe from other English-speaking regions of the world who are still writing in English, or who have like migrated to English-speaking countries and are writing in English. But their experiences, again, like they resonate more with like my own experience of living in Europe as somebody who's not fully from here.
Yeah.
And living in the US as somebody who was never from the US, right? So yeah, like I completely relate to that. And I think like my curiosity was about like the way that you process language, and when you're reading in Ukrainian, whether there's like, a kind of deeper emotional connection maybe with the words that you're reading, or whether you find that at this point your English emotional language is just as deep and just as rich internally inside of your head.
I read one book. I don't remember the name of it, and I don't remember the author, but it was some US fictional writer, and I noticed that I had to read every page with a translator because it was so rich language. There were so many words I didn't know. It was super hard for me to read. And because if you are reading non-fictional books, they're super easy. Even people with the beginner level of English knowledge can read those books. But if you are going deeper, it's super hard. So definitely there is some differences because Ukrainian is my native and I feel it by heart. And I'm still not that, even though people are telling me that I have a good level of English, it's just conversational. Like I have no ideas about how to express emotions like in so much different ways. So it's definitely harder for me to read like English authors, American authors.
Yeah, for sure. I understand that. Like, I live in France and I'm speaking French and I'm reading French, but like the kind of the emotional complexity that I'm capable of is just, I don't know if I'll ever reach that level of emotional complexity in another language than I have in the one that I went through my teenage years in, right?
Yeah.
That I like discovered my emotional self in.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how you told me, as this transactional level is good, but emotional level, still a lot to learn.
Yeah. And it's wild, right? Like we kind of have all these levels of ourselves as well. And I think one of the things that's sort of like woven through this conversation that we've had today is about how, we connect with our emotional self, and how we kind of connect with our like cerebral or social self, and where those things overlap, but also where they diverge. And I wonder whether you find that when you're moving through the world, you tend to be like you find yourself being like more of an emotional person or more of a cerebral person. Do you tend to be more logical, or do you get like hit by emotion first and then like rationalize your feelings later?
I can't name myself a rational person. Even though my wife tells me that I'm rather logical person. So even if I do something emotionally, there is still some logic behind it. So it won't like, I will do totally strange thing. So it can be emotional, but it still be logical, at least for me. So I would say that more emotional, and I would say that I'm moving more to emotional part because, there is so much rationality around us. And even if talking about this country boundaries and talking about different laws, different taxation systems, and even though that we as Ukrainians have to have visas to travel to other countries, for example, and people from the US do not have to have visas, which is really very weird, but still. And all those things, I can't say that they are scaring me, but I feel like people are getting rid of those boundaries already. So it's like after COVID, it showed that no matter where you are in the world, it just matter what kind of person are you and who are you inside, because you can connect with anyone. We are Zoom or we are any other tool, and you can still have these deep conversations if you click. And also I noticed that, at least it's my thought, that you can't build friendships only on rationality. It's just impossible. You can't be rational friends. You can't be rational colleagues. You can't be rational business partners. You can be, I don't know, rational movie voice. Once again, I have no idea. But you can't be rational friends. It's all about emotions. It's all about being who you really are and seeing how other people approach your emotions, and if other people can be themselves with you and share their emotions. Because it won't be fair if somebody is very emotional and another person is rational, because it won't click. You won't receive this emotional feedback, and one person will look for it and another person will think that it's just too much. So it's always good to understand if you are connected on an emotional level first, and then see if you can, do some stuff together in the future. Once again, if you need it, maybe not. Sometimes it's good just to have good conversations.
Yeah, that's pretty profound. So while we all wish that the sky was the limit, unfortunately, time is the limit, and that feels like a good place to wrap up this conversation. It feels like we've really traveled this kind of spectrum between emotional and rational. So I have 2 questions for you to wrap up, and they're kind of quick fire questions, but I can imagine that they may go on a little longer. So I would like you to name one fear for the future.
Yeah. So what am I'm afraid of?
Yes.
It's
and
all
it can be
connected.
either emotional or rational.
It's all connected with me and my family, and I have no ideas where in the world I will find myself in the future. And the biggest fear I have right now is if we will feel safe. Because I never thought about that before the war started, but now it's my deepest fear, and yeah, I'm still trying to deal with it. But once again, I don't know what the future holds, and I'm trying not to think a lot about it, but still.
The emotions there still all the same, right? Even if you don't rationalize.
Yeah, you never know. I tried to rationalize for 33 years of my life, and then overnight everything changed. So it's all about seeing what happens next, and it's all about emotions.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I'm not going to leave us on that note. So I would like the follow-up question to be what is your biggest hope for the future?
My biggest hope, and I almost sure that it's impossible, that the world gets rid of any weapon they have, and that every conversation, every every question will be resolved by just negotiating and finding some compromise, and finding some benefits in every situation instead of fighting about every simple thing. And I remember this. I heard this research where 2 people, and you have $10, and you have to divide those $10 with each other. You can divide them equally, 5-5, or you can divide them 9 for you, 1 for another person. And one person choose how to divide, and another person choose agree or not. And if this person agrees, everyone receives what first person told. And if they disagree, everyone receives nothing. So it was so strange for me that even if somebody, divides like 9-1, another person choose to refuse. They choose to receive 0 for everyone instead of having 1 for themselves. And I'm always thinking about that and like, okay, so if I can change something, I will try to change. If I can reach equality, I will try to reach equality. But if I can't, why should I care about making other people worse? I will care about making my life better. And if I can't, for example, in this situation, if I can't choose, if I can only choose, should I receive $1 or 0? I'd better have 1. I don't care about other person. I will be happy for this person if they receive $9. I understand that at some point I will receive my $9. So yeah, so my biggest hope is that people find a way how to receive any kind of conflicts and any kind of misunderstanding just by having real deep emotional conversations instead of killing each other.
That is a big hope indeed. So I feel like this conversation could keep on going on, and that there's so much that we can talk about both the past and the present and the future as well as the present. But here we are. It has been such a joy to get to ask you these questions and to hear your answers. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to interview you.
Thank you so much, Ella. You asked just amazing, deep questions. As always, like I'm so amazed of what questions you are always asking. And yeah, it was just a pleasure for me to answer all those questions. And thank you very much for proposing to switch seats. It's a great experience. And see you in the community world.
See you soon. Bye.
And thank you so much for listening. If you liked our conversation, hit the like button on 5 stars and share it with your friends. That's it. We're done. See you in the next episode.